flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave Hurst.
Willow Bear.
Robert Teaser.
Ewan McKnight.
Cody Merrill. Polly Donbaugh. Meredith Moriarty.
John Walston.
Catherine Nadeau.
And John McPhillips.
Apologies.
We have big students with us tonight. Welcome, thanks for coming. Your obligation is to stay until 9 o'clock or the meeting is over, whichever one comes first. And before you leave, make sure you come and sign out on one of the sign-out sheets that's up here so you get credit for being here. First up is our approval of minutes. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the April 10th, 2024 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. 3 is meeting reports. And first is our superintendent's report.
First, I'd like to congratulate some of our students. We have some Glenmont students who won first in math. That's the first grade team. They were regional winners in the virtual statewide elementary math competition. The students received trophies and Glenmont received a plaque and a $1,000 prize. I'd like to congratulate James Tornian, Addison Walsh, and Jackson Morrell. And they are in the classes of Laura Gentile and Carrie Lebarsky. So congratulations to those students and their teachers. I'd also like to congratulate Molly Walvis, a junior at the high school. She was named the New York State Intermediate Lincoln Douglas Debate Champion. After 5 preliminary rounds, she was one of 12 debaters to continue to the elimination round. She won every one of her elimination rounds, debating both sides of a given argument. The primary objective of the United States criminal justice system ought to be rehabilitation, and her Molly's evidence and well-thought-out arguments came out on top every time. So I'd like to congratulate her. And also, I know it's not for a couple weeks still, but some of our Odyssey teams, Odyssey of the Mind teams, did very well. We do have a team, a high school team, going to the Worlds, and we'll have them come to a board meeting and recognize some of the teams. If you've never seen an Odyssey of the Mind competition, it's very interesting. Hard to kind of figure out, but it's an interesting experience if you ever have an opportunity to. And lastly, I want to just comment on the lab school process for the 8th graders. I want to take a few minutes to discuss the process for determining interest among the current 8th grade students that we had spoke about a few weeks ago to enter lab school. As you may know, the minimum threshold of 20 students who could be enrolled as 9th grade within 9th grade was not met. The process was different this year than in the past based on feedback from many of you and on the condensed timeline for choosing a schedule. The counseling team at the middle school, as well as Kristen Connor, our counseling supervisor, took the lead role in the process. We did provide information directly to both students and parents about the lab school, both in person and through Parent Square. All but 5 families received those notifications with emails at least. The criteria used by the counselors to determine eligibility for lab school were that 2 things really. Students needed to be enrolled in all 4 courses in the lab school program as well as the research class. Students who had been recommended and on track for honors math outside of lab school were not recommended to continue if the curricula cannot be met within the current lab school program. So any classes outside of the cohort was not part of the recommendation process. Students also needed to be on grade level, be able to maintain an overall grade of 80, which was re-implemented in the lab school program for this current year and next year's class. Students who were significantly below this performance level in middle school were not recommended to continue. So those were the criteria that were used. I do understand this news is difficult for supporters of the program and for individual students and families. I do want to remind everyone that meetings between the counselors and students and counselors and parents is confidential information. In the coming weeks, I will send out invitations to the committee's representatives to discuss the lab school program's future, and we'll continue to work collaboratively with all stakeholders to find a solution that serves our students and community effectively. And that's my report for right now.
I'm assuming other people probably have some questions also, but One question that we have heard from the community is why there wasn't sort of a formal application process, and can you speak to that?
Sure. So after the student forum that the Lab School Teachers and Students presented, there was an interest form that basically students indicated if they wanted to speak to their counselor or not. From that form, there was approximately 45 students who indicated they were interested. This counselors waited until after the parent meeting to follow up with the students. There were there were some other students who expressed interest after the fact. I think the counselor said about 5, so a total of 50 maybe. From there, after they met with those individual students, the number was down closer to 30, 30 to 35. At that point, we said we probably were not going to need an application process because the application process, if you recall in the past, was used for the lottery system. So from there, that's where the counselors began meeting with individual students, speaking with parents, and determining which students wanted to continue with lab school in the current form with their 4 core classes and research.
And I know one of the other questions that we've had is why there wasn't a sort of formal deadline for, with respect to the process.
Sure. So there wasn't a formal deadline because, one, we started the process very late. So we are currently behind in our scheduling process with the middle and high school. The high school just did the first run of the schedule, which also impacts the middle school. So the goal was to make sure that all the counselors had enough time to meet with individual students and parents. Once that was done, they did, I know, outreach to other students that maybe had not expressed interest on the survey, but they thought might be interested. So by the time the counselors did that and met with everyone, once the supervisor had the final list and said that we're good, the counselors were confident. I believe they were confident that every student who had expressed interest had an opportunity to meet with them. That was when we made the decision. So if that had taken a day or 2 longer, we would have extended that time, but that's when the counselors finished.
Other questions people have?
Couple. You mentioned the committee. Where are we at in getting membership staff for that?
So the teachers are still deciding what they're going to do.
Okay. We have community members identified.
Yes.
Do we have a timeline on when we expect that to happen in terms of future decisions?
I don't have one right now.
I at least heard a couple of concerns from the community that the students have been told, effectively, we are recommending you for an honours class, and therefore you don't have the choice to enroll in lab school. That's not correct?
Correct. Teachers, so the classroom teachers are the ones who make the recommendations. They did that back in January, I believe. And then from there, counselors meet with the students, not just about lab school, but about the recommendations, talk to parents. And then ultimately, if students choose to take honors classes, they can. And then that's what gets selected for their scheduling process if they opt not to. Sometimes students are recommending for multiple honors classes and they choose to take 1 or 2. So depending upon what the outcome is of those conversations with students and parents, depends upon ultimately how many honors classes they decide they want to take or not.
So students should have been, still had the opportunity if they wished to enroll in lab school, even if they were recommended to take an honours class outside lab school.
Correct. The only potential is with the accelerated math. If they're already taking certain classes, they can't take the same class over again.
Right.
So, right, because some kids already have high school credit in those areas.
Can I just follow that up? The needing to take the 4 core classes within the lab school instead of taking like an honors outside of lab school is the way the model is structured.
Always intended to.
Okay. So when we hear that a student in the last couple of years was able to take an honors class outside of lab school, that was related to the lower enrollment, or what?
It was done because there were low numbers and the teachers were trying to keep kids in the lab school program. So I would say they've just been overly flexible with that.
Okay, so it's not a new.
Correct. in the curriculum handbook, it outlines what the program is.
So you just went through the eligibility criteria pretty clearly. How was that shared with people? Exactly, I mean, what you just went through, who would or would not be eligible?
So the course in regards to what the program is in the curriculum handbook, but obviously there's a lot of information. The counselors, when they were meeting with students and talking to parents, that's specifically what I asked them to share, is that there's core courses within the program, the 4 cores, and a research class that was added years ago, is a requirement in a lab school program. So students had to commit to that, and that the AD requirement went in this current freshman year, because it had been part of lab school years ago. It was dropped, and that was reinstituted. And so students had to be aware, and parents had to be aware of the fact that the AD eligibility, and so academically, they had to be able to meet that.
I guess one of the things that I've been hearing a lot about is confusion about the shift in recent years to allowing for different school courses to be taken outside of lab school, and then the reinstitution of that, and that not being communicated clearly. That's one piece I've heard a lot, especially as it pertains to math, although I've heard a bit about honors as well. And then also the just the idea that had folks known that eligibility, that have to be on grade level, you have to be achieving a certain level, had that been communicated clearly, that there would have been just less confusion overall, had that been right from the jump as part of the student presentations, as part of the parent presentations.
Well, it's in both what the core curriculum is in the lab school program. It was in the student, I saw both. It was in the student presentation, it's in the parent presentation about what the core program is of lab school, and the curriculum handbook. I think the most valuable way to communicate that was what I asked the counselors to do, to make sure parents and students were clear about that.
Okay. But that wasn't put out holistically, like in a communication just of what all of the requirements all taken together would
No, it's in,
be.
it's in the curriculum handbook though.
Okay. And then, excuse me, can you speak a little bit more to the math situation specifically, because that is one that we've heard about so much, and why accelerated in some case, like accelerated would work, but double accelerated wouldn't, and could you walk through that just a little bit?
I'm gonna ask David to speak more on that.
Sure. So there are a couple challenges. One is curricular related, one is schedule related, right? So on the curriculum side, the lab school level 1, 2, 3, 4 does not align with the honors curriculum in the traditional school, which is what accelerated students take. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is the scheduling. So if half I'll just use half to make it easy, right? So if half your 9th graders are taking Lab School Math 1 and the other are taking Lab School Math 2, you have to make sure you schedule those so that it kind of works for both. One way to do that is to schedule it at the same time, right? Another way to do it is to kind of block out a period where there's no other lab school courses that are being offered, so that it gives you more flexibility within math, right? The challenge with doing it the first way, where you're kind of pairing 1 and 2 together, that works for those students, but then a student that's the following year, when you have 9th and let's say, look at the 10th graders, right? You have some 10th graders taking level 2 and some taking level 3. So that means 2 and 3 also have to be given the same period, and 3 and 4 have to be done the same period. Well, that means you would need 4 teachers if you did it that way. Or you could say, all right, well, just do like period 4 is going to be math 1 and 3, period 5 is going to be math 2 and 4, and no other lab school courses can be offered during there, because then that gives you total flexibility, right? And we tried those iterations, and what ends up happening is now those are periods where electives are, world languages might be, music ensembles, and those things. So as soon as you start locking things in to satisfy one aspect, it locks kids out of other things. So those are the challenges. So it's not to say that it can't work. Sometimes when you make it work, though, it creates other issues. And it brings back, again, now at the end of the day, students are going to have to make choices, right? So we have to run the schedule that maximizes availability for all kids. Because I can't say, okay, well now, this band ensemble doesn't work for any of the accelerated kids in lab school, so let's move it over here. Well, now what was enrolled with 90 kids, only 50 kids it works for, right? So the way scheduling works is you have to maximize it for the greatest number of students to get their requests. And so that doesn't always play nicely. The other fact is, come year 4, a calculus option does not exist in lab school. So inherently, you're going to take your senior year, you're going to be outside of lab school taking a course. That's something that's been allowed the last few years. But again, from what I heard from a lot of community members, both in the forums and in email, is that the cohort model is sort of the strength of this program. And if that's what we're going to hang our hats on as being the strength of the program, then we can't start having these one-offs where students are sort of getting pulled in and out of lab school for core courses, because that dilutes the whole idea of the cohort model.
Right. Currently, there's about 30% of current lab school students who are taking not just math, but other courses, core courses outside.
And so this year, it was determined that that was going to be the return to the prioritization of the core courses. And I think one of the questions that I'm asking as we look, to the future is, when there is a shift, right? When there's a palpable shift, we are returning to what is written on paper. We are not going to be continuing this practice anymore. How is that communicated? Because it seems from many, many accounts that communication was disorganized at best, that there was different information coming through different channels to both the students and the parents. And I think that creates a sense of frustration. I think there's parents here who will speak to their own feelings about this, but when I look at this and I think, okay, that makes sense, right? The core curriculum is the point. That makes sense. Having communicated that soundly, I think would also allow parents and students to make choices more upfront without feeling like they're going back and forth, and without feeling as though I'm in, I'm out, this is an option, this is not an option. So I guess that would be my request, is like, how can we in the future streamline when we're whether it's this program or any other program, how can we streamline communication so that what is implicit and understood by the folks running it is really explicit for folks who are applying and for folks who are watching, and so that we're able to standardize that communication. Because I can see any number of very reasonable paths where, because we have so many folks involved, because this is a big organic system, you have different information being shared at different times. But in this case, it seems as though that created a lot of confusion and has led to a lot of what we're hearing from now. So to the extent that we can look to the future about how do we streamline, how do we make the implicit explicit, and how do we make this super easy for anybody to follow is a request that I've got for the team here.
Just to follow up on that a bit, actually, on Holly's point, I had a couple of folks comment that they were still, well, a student in particular, was still talking to middle school staff and trying to work out whether they wanted to be in the lab school on like the 18th. And then the decision was made on the 19th, and they didn't even hear about it except from another kid. And it seems like a deadline would have been a really helpful thing to have communicated. When the decision's being made on this day, if you want to jump, you've got to be committed. Again, just over communicating stuff, yeah.
Right. One question, if I may, sorry. Is that all right? On the committee, you mentioned that the teachers are still making up their mind, or they're figuring out how to approach this, or figuring out who to say. Is there anything that can be said on that front?
Not at this time. I mean, I don't have anything more to
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our board report. And the first thing I wanted to note was I believe Bus Driver Appreciation Day was earlier this week. And on behalf of the board, I wanted to say a thank you to all of our bus drivers. And for a lot of our students, our bus drivers are how they start and end their school days. So they are really important. And I thank them for everything they do. I also believe that today is Administrative Professionals Day. So I want to thank on behalf of the board, everybody who works in the district, but especially say thank you to Brittany, who's sitting over there, who does such a great job keeping the board organized and on top of all the things we need to do. So thank you, Brittany. I wanted to make sure everyone got the email. If anyone's interested in attending, I think it's tomorrow at noon. There's a NISBA analysis of the enacted state budget. It's from 12 to 1:30. It's free for NISBA members. If anybody has any interest in looking into that. We had a policy committee meeting on Monday and went through a number of policies that will be on our next agenda. And there was also a facilities committee meeting that met last Monday, I think the week before Monday. And John, if you wanted to report out on that?
Sure.
Something to share.
Yeah, facilities committee met with Nick and his team. I think I'd like to point out that they're doing a really great job, I think, managing the contingencies and some of the change orders, doing a good job dealing with some things while things are open. So I'd like to definitely commend them for that. I think they're doing a really good job managing that. Making great progress. They're getting ready for a lot of the summer work that's going to happen when the students aren't in the schools. We saw some pictures of the middle school auditorium. So that's moving along well, and along with the LMC, which will be there, and they've got a couple meetings. So it's progressing well, and financially they're doing a great job managing things.
And then you want to share something about the library?
Yeah, absolutely. So over at the Bethlehem Public Library, at least as of late last week, there was a display in the main hallway of student artwork from throughout the district, and it was just stunning. I mean, it's so wonderful to see the talent and the hard work that our students put into the art, and it's just cool to see it all displayed there so wonderfully. So thanks to the library, thanks to the students, thanks to the teachers and everybody who's involved in putting that together. It's a wonderful display.
Last night I attended the online safety program at the high school. Mike Klugman was there, and there's several members from the FBI who presented on online safety for our children. It was a very educational program, very disturbing. I definitely learned a lot from it, and I know that the technology department is going to be putting out some further resources, I believe, next week or something like that. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at those. It's a really eye-opening experience, especially for parents of younger children who perhaps think that this isn't an issue that will be affecting them yet. One of the things they emphasized was some of the most dangerous stuff is geared towards kids ages 10 to 14, and really, that's fifth graders. And I know a lot of elementary school parents are thinking they're not there yet. So I just found it a very good program. I wanted to thank everyone for putting it on.
Yeah, breaking news, just this afternoon, the Philharmonic Orchestra competed, I guess, in the NISMA State Awards for the ensemble, and got the highest possible mark, Golden Distinction. I had the joy of being at the concert. They were really cool. 4 pieces, just delightful music. So nice job to them. They did their conductor. I know we mentioned this last time, so between last board meeting and this board meeting, we had the naturalization ceremony here at the high school, which was a thing of joy and beauty. And if there were many people with tears in their eyes, I think the social studies department, I believe Nick McIntyre really led bringing that here, and I hope we can do this as often as possible, because it was absolutely delightful.
Yeah, I'll add my kudos to the school for hosting that. I thought the presentation was amazing. I thought the school did a great job in incorporating the students into that. I thought it was a great learning experience, and I'm glad that the school took advantage of it. And I agree, if to the extent that you do it more, if you had the opportunity, I would certainly support that. So congratulations to the school for hosting a great event.
Do we have anybody here from the high school student senate tonight? Or middle school? It's starting to get nice outside, so people don't want to hang out with us. All right, moving on to our presentations this evening. We have two presentations. The first is on universal pre-K.
Okay, so I just want to highlight a few things about universal pre-K. As you know, and most people know, for the last few years, we've received funding from the state to use for UPK. Unfortunately, we've not been successful in any of our RFPs to actually get providers and partner with those individual providers. And this year we have found some success. So I'll just talk a little bit about the provider itself as well as the process moving forward. So our allocation is just over $1.2 million. What that is every student who participates in UPK, there's an allocation that we can provide to the providers for $5,400 per student. So that equates to 235 seats. There's no cost to families. The program has to be a minimum of 5 hours. It is eligible to just 4-year-old children only, not 3- and 4-year-old. Transportation is not provided. Meals and snacks need to be offered by the provider. We had the RFP, we put it out a little earlier this year, and they were due on March 15th. So the community partner that we're working with, we still have to finalize a contract with them, but that will come to the board for your approval once that contract is ironed out. It is a current business in the capital region for over 15 years, so it's been around for a while. They currently serve about 1,000 children locally. They do offer before and after care, which for some families that will be important because it is a shorter day. They also provide summer camps. They meet the New York State Office and Children and Family Service requirement, which is part of the requirements to be a UPK provider in partnership with the school district. So as I said, we're working on the contract with them. It should be forthcoming to the board, hopefully sometime in May for approval. So the enrollment, unfortunately, it's only 2 classrooms, but it's a start, so we're excited to at least begin. There's 2 classrooms, and it has, we'll have 18 students each. So you have to be 4 years old. The date is you have to be born between December 2nd, 2019 and December 1st of 2020. The partnership is able to provide, TSL will provide services to students who also have IEPs, related services, or may require ENL services, English as a new language. And all students who reside within the district boundaries are eligible to register and participate in the lottery. So I'm going to ask Erin, because one, I can't read this from here because she put on, but talk about just the registration process. She worked with our registrar on to set this up, so.
So the UPK registration will function just the same as all of our other registrations. So parents will sign up via Aspen, which hopefully will make kindergarten registration easier for all of them too. If they go through the registration process for the UPK students, they won't have to do everything that they had to do for once they're kindergarten eligible. So they'll go to the district website. Just like for kindergarten registration, if they most likely don't have an Aspen account, but they could if they have another child. If they don't, they'll register for an Aspen account. Once you get an Aspen account, you will initiate a new student registration, and then you just need to provide 3 forms of proof that you are a resident, and go through, you'll list your student information, the guardian information, and then there's also a packet under UPK that you'll download, and then you can upload everything back into the portal. And you'll go through that. There is a transportation section in there because it's our normal registration portal. You would just select no, but it's the same process for our kindergarten registration. So it's all through Aspen, and it'll be up on the website that parents can register for. And that's all.
We also, with our budget newsletter, one of the pieces of information we're going to put, so it's very clear, is about UPK and registration, because parents will receive that prior to the deadline for registration. So how the lottery works, so all families do need to be registered in order to be eligible for the lottery. This has to be a random lottery, so everyone is eligible who does register, and that lottery will happen on May 31st. We'll then notify families if selected the week of June 3rd. They'll be notified by both email and mail. And then we will have a deadline for them to accept it, because I imagine that we'll have more than 36 families who are interested in participating in UPK. So essentially, how the wait list will work is like what many other districts have found, is you do the lottery for everyone who is registered. And then if someone declines to be part of the program, it goes to the next number on that for their interest in participating. We'd like to have those slots filled, obviously, before the end of the school year, because then they'll have to work with TSL Adventures on any additional information that they will need. So we'll keep a wait list in the event a seat opens up, and notify those families via mail or email if that's an option. So if there's any questions, that's pretty much all we have at this point, but I'm happy to answer any regarding the partnership or the lottery system.
How are we getting the word out?
So after tonight, we are going to send information out about the fact that we will be offering UPK. Once registration opens, we'll be continuing to send that information. One of the reasons we thought it would be important to include it on the budget newsletter is because everybody gets that. So you're not missing, if you're not signed up for Parent Square, you're not signed up for, you don't get email any other venue, that we hope to get that word out as much as possible. So that's, I think the budget newsletter will hit everyone.
Was the bid a yearly bid? In other words, after next year, will the process have to start over again for the year after that?
Yes, I mean, the goal would be, some districts have 5 or 6 different partnerships because certain providers might only be able to provide a classroom or 2. TSL will be new here, so there's a possibility that perhaps if all goes well this year, they could potentially open up other classrooms if there's space, or we could get another provider. We have been working a lot through BOCES to try and look at regional options for UPK, knowing that we do have families who may live here but might travel to, let's say, Guilderland for work, and if there was a regional option, that could be a potential, but there's a lot of questions that state ed can't answer about some of those things that we're trying to work through. So hopefully there will be more options down the road for families.
Thank you.
Yep.
Where's TSL located?
It's going to be on Delaware Ave. It's right next, we looked it up, right next to St. Thomas, right?
Right past Four Corners.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a vacant building now. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Real McCoy? We know where Aaron goes.
So just I'm gonna ask a couple questions that I've asked you before, but recognizing that not everybody is watching all of our meetings, just to have this all in one place. Why doesn't the district just offer this? Why don't we just do this ourselves?
Sure. One, space is an issue. There's certain requirements for pre-K. Obviously, there's specific ratios you have to meet. There's also the fact that it's a different day. That could be a good thing in some ways. It could also present challenges. You have to also make sure you can provide lunch to the students as well, which some of our schools already, their lunch periods are already pretty long and extensive because of the way the school day works. The biggest issue is space. We don't have the classroom space. because even with declining enrollment, if you recall, we've kept our class sizes smaller than we were prior to COVID to make sure that students were getting the support that they needed. So our numbers, our classroom numbers is not that much lower than they were prior to the pandemic.
Got it, thank you. And then, excuse me, if, and then again, just to have everything in one space, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're gonna have 36 spots
Correct?
that will be open by lottery, and people can sign up on Aspen for the lottery between May 1st and May 24th.
Correct.
And then after that, that's it for this year.
Correct.
We'll run the lottery in June. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I had in addition to the budget newsletter, at least for kids with an IEP in that age group, we already know who those families are, right?
Mhm.
I imagine there are other ways to do targeted outreach.
Correct.
And for TSL, are there is there a limit to what needs they can meet at that location?
I'm not sure. I would imagine there probably are some limitations as to what they can meet. I mean, they have to, they indicated in their proposal that they can meet certain IEP needs. I mean, related services probably are, kind of a given at that age, but I imagine there's some restrictions as to how much they could provide.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the final piece of that question was whether students with an IEP and students without were two separate lotteries, or if everyone is mixed into a 36 total.
It's all together. One of the discussions that's happened, I know it's happened with some of the representatives, is can there be a lottery system that prioritizes, for example, economically disadvantaged students? However, that's not currently in law. So the current law says that it has to be a lottery system, and everyone is part of that process. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Our second presentation this evening is on the LINK system.
The tag team presentation tonight. So during our March 20th budget presentation, Claire Grodin, our food service director, as part of her presentation, started to socialize the concept of a shift of the food service platform from the current platform to a new platform that is associated with the BOCES cooperative agreement that we entered into with BOCES this past fall. So wanted to talk a little bit in terms of why that transition is necessary, one of which is because we've moved to the BOCES cooperative model. But more importantly, it's also tied to food services back of house operation. So Titan allows for the digital menu preparation that is actually a little bit more enhanced than the menu preparation that we have available now. It provides additional information to parents, nurses, food service cafeterias in the individual buildings in terms of carb counts and allergens for those students that may be sensitive to those particular items. It also provides for the digital, the free and reduced meal application in the digital format, and it actually serves as the financial point of sale module for all of the cafeterias in the food service in all the buildings. So that's on the Titan side, which is sort of the food service module. Linked to that is Link, which is the financial arm, the proprietary financial arm to Titan. So that is sort of the context of why that change and shift is occurring at the present time.
So Link is the equivalent to My School Bucks. So we've been using Mosaic, and Mosaic is, My School Bucks was proprietary to Mosaic, and now Link is proprietary to Titan. So you might hear Titan, but the parents and community don't really need to know about Titan. They will see Link. And it functions very similarly to My School Bucks. This is what the BOCES is supporting. So all districts that receive a BOCES-supported cafeteria service are using this. So it's been out in the community for a while. A lot of people are using it around here regionally. It's got pretty decent reviews. It's easy to use. I've signed up for it as a parent already, just to kind of see how it's going, and we've set it up. So a couple things just to compare what My School Bucks was to Link. So we're going to look at this in two different ways. The first way we'll look at it is in the school meals realm. So My School Bucks used to be, earlier this school year, was a $275 fee. That's a flat fee per transaction. They raised that recently in the last month or so to $325. The reason that I left that on here is because once one vendor does it, we sometimes see that another vendor will follow. So currently, Link is $260 per transaction, and that's what it will start at, but I wouldn't be surprised in the next year if we see an increase. There is no charge for cash or check for either of these programs. So many families do send in cash or check. They can send it in their backpack, hand it right to the person in the lunch line, and it will be taken care of and processed the same way. So that's the school meals side. At the school store side, there is a transaction fee, but parents have never seen or paid this, and they will not see or pay this when we move to Link. This fee is absorbed by the clubs. So for the play, for example, the play absorbs that fee. But for AP exams and educational purposes, the district absorbs that fee. So that's the difference in that. So it's never actually seen by anybody. Somebody is paying it, either the district or the clubs, but that's what that is. So some information for parents and guardians. We're going to send out information for how you can register. You're just going to go online. You're going to select the Bethlehem Central School District. And then once you're registered, you will have to link yourself to your child, pun intended. And you'll do that by confirming their student ID number, which is in Aspen, so you can look there, or you can just ask your child, because most of them have it memorized, and their name. You can do this. We recommend doing it on the computer, but there is an app that works very well, I've found so far. Some of the reviews are mixed, though, on the store. So here's the timeline. We first, as John said earlier, socialized this with Claire's presentation in March. Tonight we're giving you a little bit more information. On May 3rd, we're going to open up Link registration, and that's when our communications department is going to send out information to families on what that looks like. They're going to send out flyers. We're also putting in the budget newsletter too, so everybody will have information on how to do this. We're going to stop accepting payments into My School Bucks on May 20th for the cafeteria side of the world, because we have some senior events happening that are in there. So senior ball and senior banquet and senior t-shirts are all already there, and they're going to continue through June. So we're going to keep My School Bucks alive and well to get through all of the senior events. We're just going to shut it down on the cafeteria side. So we don't go live until the 28th. What happens to your money in between then? It will still be good. So we're just going to stop taking payments. That gives us a couple days to finish processing that. So anything that is in your My School Bucks account will be rolled directly into your Link account. So all of that money that is there will come right over to Link. We're just going to download what the balance is that you have, and then we're going to upload it into Link. And so that's the timeline and the rollout. And now we're ready for questions, I think.
One question that has come up, I think with My School Bucks, when you go in to pay for add money to a lunch account, there's a limit as to how much money you can add in any one transaction. Will that be the same for Link, or?
We can set that as a district. I think right this moment, I believe it's at $150, but I think we can make that up or down based on feedback.
If there is a cost per transaction, if you're a family that has somebody who likes to buy lunch every day, and you calculate and you can afford to put in a big like that's.
Yeah, we can control that. That I know we can control.
I was going to raise the same point. you know, Kieran eats roughly $100 worth of school food every week or two. And so, you know,
We thank you.
I actually ended up coming in and just handing the front office like $1,000 and saying, look, that'll keep him going for a month. Because, yeah, otherwise it adds up in fees.
But if you're a family that can only afford to add $30 at a
You
time,
pay a huge amount in fees, it's
it's a
nuts.
huge
But-
amount
but-
of fees.
If you decide to pay via credit card through the application, cash and check there's no fee. Whether you want to do $3.55 per day in cash or check, that transaction between the student and the person at the point of sale, there is no fee. There hasn't been a fee on the My School Buck side. There will continue to not be a fee associated with this new platform and application as well.
So as I understand it, the transaction with regard to that fee that we were talking about, the $275 or whatever it's gonna be, is every time you load it, not every time you buy
Yeah,
something.
That's correct.
And then I guess it's a little confusing, because the other transaction that you're talking about, the percentage for like the tickets and whatnot, is that per buying something?
So if the ticket is $10, it's the percentage, that's added
So
to the
the
$10.
transaction in that context means every time you use it?
Correct.
And the transaction in the other one is every time you load it?
Correct.
Okay.
Again, but just to emphasize the difference on that percentage transaction, parents, guardians, students will not actually absorb that cost.
They never have.
And they haven't before. So it's actually the extracurricular clubs that are absorbing that fee in terms of whatever cost they're charging in the first instance. And in the isolated instances for the district side, and it's a very nominal amount for AP exams, SAT exams, that's absorbed by the district because it's associated with an instructional purpose.
Thank you.
I will say, it does add up to quite a bit that say the extracurricular club is absorbed.
It does.
I'd have to imagine that's built into the ticket fees and whatnot.
It wasn't originally,
Because you can't raise your ticket prices so high that people can't afford to buy tickets.
Sorry, on the, so on the fee front, for folks who want to pay by check, to whom do they write the check? Can you just walk us through exactly what that looks like for the parent?
John McPhillips. Fees are made out to Bethlehem Central School District.
Okay.
Those can come directly to any point of sale at any cafeteria in any building to process. They go in right at that. Students punch in their number. Their information pops up with their picture. The person at the point of sale confirms that, okay, is this you? They put it in. If it goes in the wrong one by accident because of a keystroke error, contact either the business office or food service. They'll make the arrangement and the adjustment.
Okay, thank you. And
Catherine, sorry, just to follow. So
Please.
when I've done this a couple of times, either I wrote it to Bethlehem Central School Lunch Fund, or I put School Lunch Fund in the memo field, and that made sure I got to the right place.
Okay. All right. So they're just making it out to the school district and then it goes in there. And then for our students who receive reduced lunch costs, who receive lunches at reduced cost, how do is there any adjustment of the fees for those students?
So whether you're, I'm sorry, so, go ahead.
They get free lunch. Even if you're eligible for free or reduced lunch, you're still getting free lunch.
Even at
It's the
reduced?
district reimbursement that is reduced to us. So it's always free for those families.
Thank you for that explanation. I misunderstood. And then could you say again for the folks in the back how we're supposed to get the money from My School Bucks to this new system?
We're just.
What do I do?
Nothing.
Thank you.
We will do it.
I just wanted to really tie that up with a bow. Thank you. Those were my questions.
Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is our recognition of public comment on agenda items. I do have a list of some individuals that have signed up to address the board. My my usual reminders that the board uses public comment period as an opportunity to listen to concerns, but will not debate issues or enter into a question and answer session. And it is also important to remember that no commenter should discuss individual district personnel. And we're always happy to take a written copy of any comments that you have. And no speaker should speak for longer than 3 minutes.
Do you want me to write?
Willing to
Yeah. Yeah.
take care of that.
Thank you.
And if you do not sign up at the end, I'll just, and you would like to speak, I will ask for a question. But the first person I have on the list is Scott Garno.
My name is Scott Garno, and I continue to be the parent of 2 lab school students, a 10th grader and a senior. And what I'm going to offer, as I usually do, is basically a question. I know it's a rhetorical question, but that's seems to me to be an effective way to address these concerns about the lab school recruitment process. And what you'll hear from me is probably more like a list of things, and then other people, I'm sure, are going to give you some more details about that. And basically my question is simply this: was this process fair and thorough? As you know, the teachers and students gave a presentation to 8th graders. They were given a survey, and my understanding is that the options were: I'm interested and want to talk to my counselor, or I'm not interested. I'm sure it wasn't the case for all of them, but I'm sure we can all imagine an 8th grader who, just from the fact of having to talk with their counselor, wouldn't have filled out that survey. My daughter, who's a 10th grader in lab school, would have been one of them. You already heard questions about whether the criteria was clear. I would argue the criteria was anything but clear, and it certainly wasn't advertised. For instance, there are current students in lab school who take double accelerated math, and that's not seemed to be okay when the process started, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. The same with accelerated math. There are current students who do that. It seemed okay when it started, and then it suddenly wasn't okay. And for me, the most galling aspect of it was the time frame. I understand that this needed to be quick, but it seems to me it also needs to be fair. If the presentation to 8th graders was on April 9th, the lab school presentation to parents and students was on April 11th. I was involved in that one. There was no deadline given. And if we go off the April 11th presentation at the LMC in the middle school, it's less than a week until April 17th, when the administration announced that there would be no 9th grade lab school class. I don't know about you, or if you've had a conversation with an 8th grader recently, but I know lots of conversations that take more than a week. Again, I understand this needed to be quick, but it seems to be it also needs to be fair and thorough. I'm not sure we could honestly and realistically look at this process and say that it was fair and thorough. One of our administrators just tonight said students needed to make choices. We knew that, but it begs the question, did we take that opportunity for them to make a choice away?
Thank you, sir.
I'll leave that with you.
Next, I have Rob Cole.
Good evening. I'm Rob Cole. I'm a parent of a lab school freshman, as well as a 6th grader in the middle school. One of the things about the process for discerning interest in lab school among the 8th graders that I found most disheartening was that there were at least 2 students who were told that they were not eligible for lab school because they had too many absences in the current year that then made them ineligible for lab school next year. These absences were medically excused absences. My daughter has had medically excused absences. and she is now in lab school. This is, these absences, it's not like they're playing hooky, they're truant, the parents are irresponsible. They needed medical care, and through no fault of their own, they were told they were not eligible for lab school. Have you no shame? Also, sorry, the guidance counselors, we've heard this from multiple parents, painted a one-sided view of lab school. Do you know you won't get this? Do you know you won't get that? Do you know this won't be possible? Do you know you may not be able to do this? Do you know, no, and no, with very little to any discussion about the benefits of lab school, about what they would get from lab school. It was a one-sided presentation among the guidance counselors. You add that to the conflicting information given to the parents. One set of information given at the parent meeting that Mr. Garno just mentioned that he was part of, where the parents were told explicitly, accelerated math, double accelerated math, it's happened. And now, no, it's not happened. I understand that there are rules, and I understand there are objectives. I understand that there are guidelines and how things should work. But for so long, lab school has allowed flexibility. And this is the year? This is the year when we've had all these conversations that the decision is made, nope, we're going to stick to the rules. We're going to suddenly get rid of all the flexibility that's existed for years. Really? Have you no shame?
Next on my list is Katie Quinn.
She's not here yet.
Okay. I believe you're the next person on the list, if you'd like to.
5 weeks ago to the day, I stood here before the board and thanked the superintendent for reversing her decision to deny 8th grade students the opportunity to join lab school. I was optimistic that recruitment would attract a lot of interest in the program and that we would easily reach the enrollment goal that had been established. But now I'm sorry to say that I was foolish for believing there was anything to be thankful for. Given everything we've seen over the last 3 months, I feel foolish for even entertaining the notion that this administration would act fairly or transparently. For the entire recruitment process was executed in bad faith. Advertising was lackluster at best. Eligibility requirements shifted arbitrarily and without warning, and students were categorically denied the option of choosing lab school over other courses if they wanted to. The whole thing was designed to fail. But the thing for me that crossed the line from bad faith to naked cruelty was the way the administration dangled the opportunity in front of eager students that it had no intention of actually offering. The administration would, of course, argue that this isn't true, but at this point, what credibility does it actually have left? I'm under no illusion that we're not going to win. I'm under no illusion that we're going to win this fight. The deck has always been too heavily stacked against us, and we may just have to accept that in the end, lab school will go away. But we won't go away, because this has become much larger than lab school. It's become about accountability and trust. It's become about the difference between right and wrong. It's become about basing decency to students and parents. I, for one, do not wish to live in a school district which not only fails to understand these principles, but seems to openly scorn them. I do not like having to explain to my children that the people they were brought up to trust, the people they should trust, are untrustworthy. And I especially do not like being lectured about what's best for our children by those who have no qualms about using them as pawns while putting their own interests first. But here we are. I am tired, we all are, but I'm especially tired of being forced to stand before this board time and again to poke holes in the administration's self-serving narrative while pointing out its flagrant and repeated acts of bad faith. I therefore urge this board to take stock in what we're telling you tonight and have been saying all along. I urge you to consider that perhaps we may be right and that the administration is not necessarily looking out for the best interests of the students in this district. I urge you, once again, to exercise your power of oversight and hold the administration accountable for its actions. For every failure to challenge an act of bad faith is complicity in that act and license to continue to commit them. Thank you.
Next, I think did I see Katie Quinn?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry I'm just getting here. I've gotten a little bit of an update from those watching on YouTube. And I'm going to guess that others have already stated that the process to gauge 8th grade interest was flawed and seems to have been conducted in bad faith to achieve a predetermined outcome, no new 9th grade class. How many programs seeking applicants don't establish clearly what the time frame for application is, whether a fixed deadline or a rolling deadline, and then surprise everyone with an abrupt announcement that the program has been curtailed? How many programs decide to ignore past precedent and shift eligibility requirements in the middle of the process, thereby downsizing the applicant pool? Worse still, after some applicants already had their eligibility confirmed to them. How many programs actively work to limit participation based on criteria that are in direct opposition to what is stated in their own informational materials? I reference here the fact that potential enrollees were discouraged from applying or winnowed based on ability, in direct contradiction to the statement in the 24-25 curriculum handbook that, quote, lab school students come from all ability levels. In the aggregate, these factors give the strong impression that administration had received sufficient interest, which apparently it did, and then worked to whittle the number down bit by bit so that it fell short of the previously set benchmark of 20. And these were just the most recent issues. The series of poor choices goes back to January, including the use of faulty data to skew the narrative and justify the closure decision. Under these circumstances, a statement that there weren't enough eligible 8th graders without disclosing and substantiating the full set of complete actual numbers is not credible. All of these issues that have arisen over the past 3 months build a fairly damning case. The totality of these decisions, reversals, poor communication, and miscommunication point to a flawed process and a flawed administration of that process. Community, build as strengthening partnerships through transparent communication, is one of the supposed core values of BC. Now this core value feels like nothing more than a Potemkin village. How are you, the board, going to hold this administration accountable? Worst of all, and this especially for me is worst of all, these missteps and bad faith decisions have caused significant collateral damage. The lab school tapestry of students, teachers, and parents has been frayed, and it remains to be seen whether that can be repaired. This is real. Morale is low in the lab school community, and there has been a discernible loss of trust between and amongst the stakeholders. No doubt, teachers are tired of being put in the middle. Guidance counselors have been put in the middle. 8th graders have been jerked around. Parents are tired of writing letters and attending board meetings to advocate and beg and plead for a program that has provided so many positives to our kids. We're discouraged by the revelation of how decisions are made and executed in this district, which does not bespeak effective leadership. So I would urge the board to think carefully about what has transpired, both process and outcome. At the very least, it would be appropriate to audit the 8th grade recruitment and enrollment process such as it was. It is not micromanaging for the board to investigate and provide oversight, given how flawed this lab school debacle has been start to finish. There needs to be accountability. Thank you.
Are there other individuals who wish to address the board this evening?
Thank you. My name is Dennis Whitford. I'm a parent of a lab school 10th grader and prospective 8th grader. Just quickly, I wanted to explain my family's experience with the 8th grade enrollment. My son went to the 8th grade middle school presentation, marked yes that he was interested in lab school, went to the parent session on Thursday, and then we were looking for the application to be put online. It didn't come online. April 15th, We received an email from his 8th grade counselor, guidance counselor, who's excellent, stating that she had seen all of the prospective students. I asked my son if he had met with this counselor. He had said no. I called the 8th grade counseling department at about 4:30 on the 15th and received a phone call back April 16th stating that she had met with my son. He was eligible for lab school. The 17th received an email from administration stating that lab school would not be an option for him. I don't know if he was scheduled to speak with this guidance counselor on the 16th and the email went out early, or whether he was just missed in that grouping, but I'm struggling with having good faith that he was just missed with this. This process has been confusing, aggravating, and I'm somebody who's very invested in this, let alone parents who are trying to learn about it, become invested in it. That's our experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else who wishes to speak?
Good evening, Jason McLaughlin. I have a freshman currently in the lab school. I just want to say I thought the UPK presentation was fantastic. I really think that it's going to be an excellent program and do great things for our community. I especially appreciated the clear deadlines, the logical enrollment process, and additionally, how clear and concise that was from beginning to end. And I wonder if we would have had a different result with the lab school enrollment if those same, if we have the same level of clear, concise, logical application process with clear deadlines. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, thank you. My name's Matthew Cohn. I have an 8th grader this year. He's not always excited to go to school. In fact, he rarely is. He likes SWAT and intramurals before school, best about his school day. But he was actually excited about the lab school. He was interested about it. He met with his counselor on, I want to say, Monday last week. His counselor said, well, you'll have a problem with math in 12th grade because you are in advanced math, but did not tell him he was not eligible, did not tell him otherwise it would be a problem. On Wednesday, we got an email that he was not eligible, period. How do we explain this to an 8th grader? I don't have an answer. I don't have a good answer, at least. When we inquired about it, we were pointed to the curriculum guidebook, which I will also say states that lab school is open to all students. We were pointed to sample math progression as the reason. I understand the cohort building. I get that. I'm still trying to figure out what to say to my 8th grader who's disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken already?
Hi, my name's Leah Duramio. I have a junior in lab school and I have an 8th grader. My 8th grader, I just opened her email for her because I was checking to make sure she was doing her homework and checking her emails from her teachers and her own email. And that's where I found the interest paper. And I quickly sent out emails and texts to all the other parents so they would know you're just sending it to the kids. They're just sending the interest to the kids. And then the kids that weren't in school on that Monday they missed the email. And so I filled my daughter's interest out for her because 13-year-olds aren't supposed to be filling out these interest things. They're supposed to be making these educated decisions with their parents. I don't know, I'm like shaking like crazy. I think you're gonna send out like an interest letter to the pre-Ks, send it out to the 4-year-olds, and see if they want to go to it. My daughter, the junior, she's in accelerated math. She was told she shouldn't go to lab school. Same thing back then during COVID. And I think things were different during COVID too. The application process was different then too. Like, we worked out the paper with her. We had just moved here from DC. Nothing has been the same every year. And this has been a rushed, quick, and the only reason that the counselors, I sent when they said that they had talked to my daughter in the 8th grade, I sent an email to the principal and all the counselors saying, please send the interest paper to the parents and the students, and the application that you said is going to be following in the next couple of days. And they didn't send the interest to the parents. They still didn't. They said, go ask your child about this email that we sent. And they didn't even resend it. This has been crazy. Time out?
No, 1 minute. Sorry. 1 minute. Keep going.
Oh.
Keep going.
I don't know what else to say. I'm just really, really disappointed. I know the kids that were applying to this program. My girl was told she could be in lab school, and this has been a horrible roller coaster. A bunch of her friends wanted to. They're all different math levels. Again, the accelerated math, they're in there. And it sounds like it's just scheduling, and we can do this. And it was just cruel to just send that interest sheet to the students. Just a 13-year-old filling that paper out. Yeah, I want to talk to my guidance counselor. And then the children called each other in. Oh, they want to speak to you next. So, I don't know what it's called. HIPAA is what they call it in medical. But they were calling each other in there to talk to their guidance counselor. So, this is messy. This is so messy and unfair. And you are representing us, the board. You are supposed to be fighting for us. And you are supposed to be helping this situation. I want to say something else, but I can't remember. So thank you, and thank you, administrators. And I love my bus driver. And that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jonathan Fishbein. I want to thank the board for the conversation about lab school. I would like to also ask that you seriously consider what you can do to take the current 9th grade students, which there are very few in lab school, and see about getting some of the students that will be 10th graders next year in traditional school, and see which of those might help to fill out the lab school class. I think that's something that will help the lab school as a whole, help the 9th graders, the current 9th graders that will be 10th graders next year, and I hope you will take that to heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody?
Hi, I just wanted to make a couple comments about UPK. Oh, sorry, Taylor Alfred. I don't have a child that's eligible this year, but hopefully the program will stick and expand in years to come. And I just was hoping the board would consider maybe some opportunities in the next year to find ways to share communication about maybe the program's success in the next year, whether that be at presentations here, to communicate to some parents down the road if the program does expand, what's been going on in year one. Just one thing to think about. Open houses are obviously a great way to get some parents some exposure to this program. I've never heard of them. Obviously, I hope that they do well and they want to stay here and want to expand. And then lastly, I know you said earlier about getting communication out to this year's parents through the bulletin, but maybe just think of some other communication options besides hard mail. So, thanks.
Thank you. That's everybody? Next on the agenda, item 6, action items. A, finance action items. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items 1 through 7.
Separate these, please.
I'm sorry?
Separate these, please.
Is there a particular one?
I can't tell
All
from this
7?
which one covers the warrants, but whichever one that is, please separate it. It could be 2, it could be 3.
The claims auditor report?
2 is the claims auditor report, and 3 is the treasurer's report.
So we have a list of warrants, which are, with the document being asked to go through, I assume, but I generally can't tell whether that would come under 2 or 3.
John, are you aware off the top of your head which one?
No, they're just listed as documents.
So it's the warrants
No,
marked
but-
2024 PDF.
So they're somewhat tied in that the claims audit report is linked,
To the
which is
treasurer's
why
report?
we're allowed to do the warrants.
Okay. Separate out 2 and 3, I guess.
Okay, as a group, or do you like them?
As a group is fine.
Okay. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items 1 and 4 through 7.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. And then it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items 2 and 3.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll continue to note, right, I don't think that the level of information we get on these warrants is something, you can't tell what's being bought a lot of the time, so I'll continue to vote no on these.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? That carries. B, professional personnel action items. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following professional personnel action items 1 through 9.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. And I believe our new ENL and World Language Supervisor is with us tonight. Kurt, you want to come up and introduce yourself and say hello?
Hey everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Kurt Hassenplug, so yeah, I'll be the new supervisor for ENL and World Languages. Starting next school year will be my 16th year in education, and I'm just really excited to work with your programs, to work with your teachers, and kind of roll up my sleeves and get to work for language-based education for the Bethlehem community. So thank you, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
C, support personnel action items. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. D, other action items. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following action items 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I had one brief question, I was just curious. I hope this doesn't prevent you from voting, John, being appointed chairperson of the vote council or anything. You still get to vote, right? Okay, good.
All in favor?
Appreciate that.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. E, the 2024-2025 Capital Region BOCES administrative budget. It is recommended by Capital Region BOCES that the Board of Education vote to approve the listed Capital District Board of Cooperative Educational Services administrative budget.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a kind of procedural question here. What would happen if we voted no? Like, we can vote down the whole thing? How does this work?
Every district gets a vote.
So it was passed by a majority of districts saying yes? Okay.
I'll just note that this BOCES program, at least the student portion, not the other things that we use them for, which I'm sure are great as well, but the student programming is so impressive there. The CTE program, if you
Yeah.
haven't had a chance, it's pretty incredible.
Agree.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. F, Capital Region BOCES board member election for 2024. It is recommended by Capital Region BOCES that the Board of Education vote on on items 1 and 2 as a slate to elect 2 candidates for board members of Capital Region BOCES. The 2 individuals are Lynn Lenhart and Kimberly Tully.
Can we separate those, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
But then we're not moving on to the slate. But,
I think the motion before us is to approve them as
As a slate?
as a slate. So you
Okay.
can move to separate them if you feel strongly about it, but it needs to be
I will also
supported.
note that there are only 2 vacancies.
Yeah, I mean, I know Lynn, I'm delighted. I don't know this Kimberly Tully person, so it seems odd to vote in favor of her. I'm happy to continue.
I did read the information about her, and she seems like she will do a great job. So I do need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. And I will just say also a thank you to Lynn for her continuing service.
Yep.
In many, many years, and we appreciate it. Item 7, recognition of public comment on a non-agenda item. If there's anyone who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item, now is the time to come up to the microphone. Item 8, future meetings and events. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is on Wednesday, May 8th, with a note that that is still the middle school. It'll be at the middle school in the brand-new LMC, so that'll be exciting to see that. Yep.
I won't be able to be here in person for that one, and I'm going to work with the appropriate people to see if I can Zoom in, and if that's an option.
And we anticipate there'll be an executive session at 6 and reconvening to open session at 7. And that's also the evening, correct, John, that we'll be having a public hearing
Yes.
on the budget. Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, at 6:30 is the Meet the Candidates night for the board election, which will be live streamed on YouTube. And on May 20th at 5:30, we have a facilities committee meeting. May 21st from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. is the annual budget vote and the election here at the high school in Gym A. And then on May 22nd is the next regular board meeting, again anticipating executive session at 6 and reconvening to open session at 7, and that's back here at the high school. And then on Monday, June 3rd, at 5 o'clock, there's an audit committee meeting, and at 6 o'clock, there is a policy committee meeting. Seeing no need to go back into executive session, could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.